Małgosia. Hey everyone. Nice to see you here again. Oh, hi. Beer OCD is with us today. Nice to see you here. We're waiting for John. Oh, hey. OCD Nashville is here too. Nice to see you guys here. Today's live will be in English. So, next exposure time for me. And, oh, John is here. Okay. As always, we have problem with connection. Or maybe.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, John. Nice to see
Nice
you
to see
here.
you. Nice to finally speak to you. You know,
Yeah,
we communicated on.
this is our first time.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice to see
So
you face and talk to you.
I'm absolutely glad you here with me. I'm so happy, and yeah, I'm happy because it's so important to speak out loud about mental health, about OCD, and especially in a few countries. For example, in Poland, OCD is not many people don't know what really OCD is in Poland. So for me, it's especially that important, and I'm happy you're here.
Yeah, well, you've done a really great job with your memes and all of your general output. You know, helping to educate people not just in Poland but around the world about OCD. So that's great.
Yeah, it's amazing. I didn't expect it when I started with my page that I will be at this point when I'm here now. It's so amazing, and I know we can make something good and make a difference.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. So today I want to talk about this invisible side of OCD because many people uh, think that OCD is something like physical compulsions, checking doors, checking windows, or cleaning house, and they don't realize how hard is how uh, how um, uh, how tough battle we have inside us, and I think this is important to speak about this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is a topic I care about a lot. You know, it's one of the great privileges of being an OCD specialist is when you meet someone and they're not really sure what's going on with them, and you're able to diagnose them as, oh, this is OCD, and then you get to help them take their life back from OCD, you know, one thing at a
Yeah.
time. And with people who are engaging in these invisible compulsions, you know, mental rituals, where it's
Yeah.
not so obvious to them or to other people that they're behaving in an obsessive compulsive way, and they've been told, oh, well, you just think too much, or you know, you worry too much. For those people, when they can realize, oh, wait a second, I have obsessions and I have compulsions, and the compulsions are things that I'm intentionally doing in my mind to try to get certainty in. Um, that's, I think, you know, among my most favorite parts of treating OCD, because when you see that light bulb go off, and you see somebody kind of light up and realize, wait a second, there's another way to think about my reality. I don't have to suffer endlessly, and then they can see themselves in the context of having OCD. It's just so amazing, and they realize they're really not so different from those people washing their hands and checking the locks and stuff like that. You know, I tell people all the time, some people wash their hands and some people wash their minds, but it's the same process.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, it's absolutely the same, but a little different to
speak about it and to understand for other people without OCD. And I know it's hard to know what obsessive and intrusive thought is and what compulsion, mental compulsion is. It's a really thin line between this, and it's hard to find the difference.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so, an obsession is typically defined as an unwanted, intrusive thought,
Yeah,
image, or urge. And I think it's very important to remember that urge goes in that category, because a lot of times we think of urges as something different.
yeah,
It's, I don't know how well this translates in different languages, but we have this term urge and we have this term
yeah,
impulse. And it's not really the same thing. And it can be very difficult to define, but an unwanted intrusive urge might be something like if maybe you have an obsessive fear of harming yourself, and you notice a sharp object over there, and then you have this internal sense that your body wanted to reach for the sharp object and hurt yourself with it. You don't want to do it. You don't have a reason to do it, but you're getting some signal from within
yeah,
that you were about to do it. That's an obsession. And a lot of times people confuse that with an impulse, like I was about to do it and I'm really a danger to myself, right? So it's an unwanted intrusive thought, image, or urge. And, I would say an image is a kind of thought. Sometimes thoughts present as words,
yeah,
and sometimes they present as pictures in your head. Um, and and then we have these things called compulsions, which are these strategies to try to respond to this sense of moral urgency. I have to address this thought. I have to make sure it doesn't make me a bad person, or doesn't cause me to hurt myself or others, or doesn't lead to me being sick, or whatever the fear might be. And if I were to just dismiss it, that would feel very dismissive, right? Very like
yeah,
taking it seriously enough. So I have to take it very seriously. So I'm going to engage in some sort of behavior to prove to myself that my
yeah,
fear is true. I wasn't going to reach for the knife. How could I do that? Well, I could spend the next hour repeating to myself, I would never do that. I would never do that. I would never do that.
mm,
No, it would just be me doing it, right? But I would have to take my attention away from my family and my job and things like that to do it. So it would be very impairing. So these things get overlooked because you can't always see them.
yeah, and it's
Please.
yeah when after 1 year in therapy, I started to see when this compulsion, this mental compulsion started, and this is a really game changer when I see it, because if I stop it on the really first few seconds, it's easier to disengage from this.
Yes, if you get in there early, it's much easier. If you spend a long time doing it, of course, it doesn't mean you can't stop, but it becomes more difficult to stop because your brain is saying, hey, this is working. We're almost there. We're so close. Keep going.
Yeah, yeah,
I tell people, I ask them, so when should you stop a compulsion? What is the answer to that question? And sometimes they find that question very confusing. The answer is now. It's always now.
yeah,
Whenever you realize that it doesn't matter if you've been doing it for 5 seconds or 5 hours, the time to stop is now. So what's interesting about compulsions is they're compelled, right? You would actually rather not do it. It's very inconvenient, and there's a lot of pressure to do it.
mm,
And then you do it, and sort of sometimes, some amount of relief, like, okay, I feel reassured. I've checked my mind. I've washed the bad thought away from my mind, and now I'm okay. And then, of course, thought comes back at some other point, because we have all kinds of thoughts, and then immediately, your OCD is right there telling you, okay, you have to do that again, or else. And so the more compulsions you do, the more you start to lose insight into how obvious it is that these are OCD thoughts and don't need to be taken seriously.
yeah, absolutely. And in my case, when I for almost 2 years, I was checking doors, home appliances, water, and lights. It's easier to see that when I'm washing hands, this is compulsion, this physical compulsion, and when we speak about mental compulsions, we can't just we can't just stop thinking. And this is the really hard part, to see the difference between thinking and between performing mental compulsions.
Yeah.
And that was really hard for me, because for half year I didn't realize if this is just normal thinking, normal worrying about something. And then I realized this is something that I'm doing for finding relief.
And I think sometimes clinicians like myself can unfortunately kind of fail to validate the experience of the patient with mental rituals, how difficult it can be to really resist going into that territory. Because it is very much like if you were a compulsive hand wash and I put hand sanitizer right in the palm of your hand and I said, don't ever use it, right? No matter how dirty you feel,
Yeah.
go like right there in your hand, right? And so mental rituals are very much like that, where there's this, okay, intrusive thought, you know, I'm not supposed to try to figure it out, but there's really nothing keeping me from doing it, right? I don't have to walk over to the thought sink and turn it on, right? So it can be very difficult to resist. And a lot of that work is mindfulness. It's about sort of being more aware in the present of what your mind is doing. Because if you're lost in thought, you're lost in the story, you're going to just follow the story page. Now it's more mental rituals. If you're really aware of what's going on in the mind, you can notice, okay, I really want to dig into this intrusive thought, but I'm not going to. Maybe there's a type of thought that you could put there to help yourself, like a non-engagement response. Maybe you agree with the thought, joke, or maybe you say, well, maybe not, or maybe you say, okay, that's a thought. There's lots of different ways you could position yourself as an observer of the thought, and then turning away from that thought, right? Walking away from the mental sink. And that can look like engaging in an activity or being mindful. It show up in a lot of different ways. But that's the mental rituals. You often have to catch them later and work your way back, as opposed to just resist them in the beginning.
Yeah, and this is so important to be self-aware, because I understand that when I am self-aware, it's easier to stop it. It's much easier to stop it. When I didn't know that this is the trigger, and then I started performing mental compulsions, I was totally lost, and I didn't even know what I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah. And also, I think this invisible side of OCD that many people from our loved ones, our family, our friends don't understand, is that we are really struggling inside, and often we don't speak about it out loud. Nobody knows that we are alone with our struggles in our head, and this is also important to speak, that people are not alone, and we can speak about this openly, because over 3 last years and last 2 years with my ROCD, I didn't talk about it with anyone. And last year, after my diagnosis, I speak with my friends, with my family, with my wife, and this really make a difference to speak about this, and realizing that we are not alone. But it's really hard because many people are fighting with shame, with this, what other people will think about them, and it's even harder when we speak about taboo thoughts.
Yeah.
For example, POCD or harm OCD, religious OCD too, because people are afraid to speak, even with therapists.
Yeah. If you can't talk about it, you're going to form your own conclusions. You're just going to talk to yourself about it, right? And in your head, you're constantly talking about it. But if you can't share it with other people and really be seen and really be honest, and some of this has to do with, general problems and mental health stigma, across the world, but a lot of it is also self-stigma. These thoughts are the reason why they bother us. We're ashamed of them. We think we're not supposed to have them. We think they mean something, and it can lead to a kind of existential crisis, right? So if you have relationship OCD, but you can't talk about it, and you're in a relationship, and what are you supposed to do but just like suffer and be unhappy? If you're having, you mentioned POCD and harm OCD, you're eventually going to conclude that you're a terrible human being, and that you need to keep it a secret and make sure nobody finds out. And these things are true, right? Just you're having a relationship with particular types of thoughts that you've learned to respond to in a particular type of way, and you have a name for that, obsessive disorder, and it's treatable, and you're not crazy, and you're not a bad person. But if you're living alone in your head with a voice in your head telling you like you're doing it wrong and you need to think about it harder, you'll eventually arrive at the conclusion that you're some kind of a failure, and that's really the tragic part. Invisible side of OCD. That'll keep you from asking for help. What would I ask for? Is there? I'm a bad person. The people who show up, the bravest people. It's a very big exposure to ask for help when you have these types of obsessions.
Yeah, but this asking for help really makes difference, and I know it from my experience, because OCD really started to ruin my life, and I was really scared to speak about it with my wife, because I didn't know what she will think about it, if she will be scared, if I make something or harm something from my family. And that was really the hardest part of start to speaking about my OCD. And I think it's connected also with lack of awareness in society, because we think people will judge us and will tell us we are bad people, or if we speak about POCD, that we have to go to the jail or something. And I really want to change this society awareness.
I think it's a great mission. I think one thing that in addition to what you're saying, makes it more challenging for people with OCD, is that the OCD itself leads to a lot of all or nothing thinking, right? So if I go out on the street and say, yeah, I have sexual thoughts about my children, I probably will get judged by some people. I wouldn't get judged by my OCD therapist. I wouldn't get judged by my friend with OCD who knows what I'm talking about. But somebody who doesn't have the information, say that's very strange. You should probably go away from society, right? And I think when we think about those things, not just that we're afraid that we'll be judged, it's that we're convinced that we wouldn't be able to tolerate cope with being judged. It's not worth the risk. I think that's like part of the sort of thinking that happens in OCD is I can't talk about these things because there's no way I would be able to handle anyone giving me anything other than the most validating, perfect feedback possible, which is not, might not feel ready to take that risk. I think that's why it's good to start with an OCD specialist.
Yeah.
If you have some OCD, that's your hit rate for success with validations can be the highest with an OCD specialist. But as you learn to address the thinking style that comes with OCD, this all or nothing thinking, if I tell my wife, she'll reject me. If I talk about this symptom, they'll think I'm a sociopath. Being able to think more flexibly and say, I'm not sure what people will think. I'm going to tell who I want to tell. I'm going to choose who I trust. And I'm going to be willing to take a little bit of risk. And if I get feedback I don't like, well, I'm going to know how to take care of myself. But learning how to take care of yourself is something that you do in therapy, right? So.
Yeah. Right, and this is really important to have someone. Therapist is amazing to have a really good connection, a really good relationship with therapists, and we can trust them. But it's also important, I see in my life, when I have friend who I can speak with about, without judgment, this really make a difference. And especially if we have really bad OCD days, OCD weeks, when we are struggle in our head for few hours a day, for 8, 9 hours a day, and nobody see it, because people think when I go to see my friends, people just told me, Lucas, why you're so silent, and why don't you speak with us or something, and think that I have a bad day. That's it. It's nothing more. And they really didn't realize how hard battle I have in my own head, in my mind. And this is this invisible side of OCD, because people just think, not all people, but people thinking that people think that this is just worrying about something,
right?
And they don't realize how much pain and how hard it is to go through the day.
Yeah. Yeah, even you may have also had a bad day at work, but you've had 2 full-time jobs, and one of them is your OCD. I think that having somebody in your life besides a therapist, that's a friend or in a partnered relationship, that you can really trust, who can also really know you well enough to know the difference just from looking at you, right? That there are these sort of peak moments in my marriage when I remember, like, wow, I really love my wife. Usually these little things like, I've done absolutely nothing, and she just looks at me and says, "Stop it," because she can see from the look on my face, I'm ruminating about something, I'm like, oh, she got me, right?
Yeah.
But really know somebody to be able to do that.
Yeah, my wife also, after a year with my OCD, she doesn't understand perfectly what I'm going through, but she really knows when I'm started asking for reassurance that this is that question, and she just tell me, Lucas, just stop, or I don't talking with you, and that's it. And this is also important because many people, many parents, especially parents, when we speak about OCD and kids, they don't realize how much bad things they can make without knowing what reassurance is, what engaging with rituals is. And yeah, this is important to speak about it, because our close ones don't know what to do, and how can they help us without making our situation worse.
Yeah. I mean, look, accommodating somebody that you care about is the most natural thing in the world, and you do it all the time. Someone says, "Oh, it's a little cold in here," and you turn on the heat. "Oh, I don't want I need a little salt for my food." You give them the salt, and these are accommodations, right? You accommodate people with your time and your attention because you want them to feel happy and comfortable because you care about them. And then to learn, when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I've got this problem and I'm trying to solve it on my own, but I can't solve it. Can you help me solve it?" It's the most natural thing in the world to say, "Okay, well, let's see. Let's try to figure out, closeted serial killer or not," right? And you can maybe do that once in some cases where it's a sort of reality check of like, well, okay, where did you get this idea? And, is this really consistent with how you think about other things? And it sounds like you're OCD. I mean, if you even know it's OCD, that's helpful to be able to bring that in, but maybe you don't know it's OCD. But, you'll see parents and partners and other ones, try for the 100th time to figure out, why you're having these sexual thoughts, or how you really feel about your religion or something like that. And still not know that they're actually facilitating the loop itself. Because now it's not just a person in their head taking this junk thought and treating it like a serious thought, and not, something like it's something needs to be seriously. Now there's another person outside of your head also agreeing we need to take it seriously and figure it out. So that's going to make your OCD much worse. And you get frustrated with the person because they're actually not helping, right? Like you
Yeah.
want their help, and then, oh, it's not enough. You need to help harder, and then that person gets frustrated with you, and it causes
Yeah.
in families.
Yeah, this is really important, and my wife really understands this point that reassurance doesn't work, and she knows my OCD is really really sneaky, and I am intelligent, so my OCD is intelligent too, and know how to ask question in that way,
Yeah,
that my wife didn't get it. That is question for
yeah,
reassurance, and that's why it's even harder to be a close one for someone with OCD,
I
because OCD needs just a, a not. Sometimes I don't need answers from my wife, just her face, and that's it. And I have a really short relief.
yeah. Yeah, that's the creativity of the OCD mind to try to get reassurance indirectly is really quite fascinating. So I'll see patients with moral scrupulosity. They won't ask me directly, like, "Do you think I'm a bad person?" They'll say, "Oh, I was reading a book about determinism. I wonder what you think of the moral implications of that philosophy," right? And I'll find myself
Good.
talking about good and what's bad, and not realizing, wait a second, you trapped me,
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And well, and I I'm also for 3 years was because in my case mental compulsions are 99% in my daily in my last 3 years. So being in your own head, John, for 24 hours is one side, and then I started to be frustrated that I can't find solution, that I have to do it again and again and again, and I think it's also important to tell people they are not alone, because this is really dangerous, because untreated OCD can be really dangerous. And first point is rumination, mental compulsions, then frustration, and then depression.
Yeah, anger and
Or
yeah,
anger, depression, or then suicidal thoughts or something. And that's why this feeling of being alone, it's really hard.
I wish it weren't true, but the reality of OCD and many mental health conditions is that because of their cyclical and circular nature, their natural trajectory is to get worse, right? Just like it will just naturally get worse. Nothing about it. Do something to you just try to wait it out, it probably will get worse in the way that you just described. Okay, I'm doing all these mental rituals to try to figure out thoughts, not working. Sometimes it feels about to work, but then right before I'm like ready to stop, I go, wait, no, that wasn't good enough. I start to ruminate again, and now I'm exhausted, and now I'm feeling desperate, and now I'm having, like you mentioned, suicidal thoughts, and that's very scary. And then the OCD grabs onto those and says, "What? Suicidal thoughts, new material, right?" And now you're obsessed about whether it's
Yeah,
on top of all of these things, and so you could just see it just sort of just entropy, just spiraling out of control. And again, it's the beauty and the magic of effective treatment, is that you can interfere in that cycle and turn it around and reverse engineer it. It's not easy, but it's not that complicated. It just requires having the right information and doing the work. But I think a
yeah,
lot of people believe that that there's a way to contain the OCD, right? That if I just think about this 5 times, I'll be okay and I can move on. And they don't realize that no, by definition, it can't. You're never going to make peace with the OCD in that way. To really dominate it and put it in its place and get over it. If you do these little negotiations, like I'll just think about this 5 times, you're going to realize one day that you still think you're thinking about it 5 times, but actually you're thinking about it in multiples of 5s, and it's taking days and 5 years or whatever it is. It has a way of sneaking up on you if you let the OCD run the show. You have to run the show, and you can. You just need the right information.
Yeah, and I think it's we can tell now to everyone how we can support people from our point of view. That, for example, I make memes. I speak out loud about OCD in social media, but how we can help people to feel less alone, to help their close ones, and break this stigma, and yeah, what we can do. Because John, yesterday I have my first appearance in Polish public television, and I spoke about OCD. And yesterday evening, called me mother and told me she feels alone. Her 15 years old son have problem with OCD, with contamination OCD. She stopped drinking water at school because he doesn't want to use public toilet, and for 8 hours he doesn't drink water, and she and her family feel alone because they are afraid of judgment. For example, judgment at school from these boyfriends.
Right. Well, the problem is the judgment is going to come anyway, right?
Yeah.
Because if the condition gets worse, this person won't be able to function in school. And this compulsion, which is very common, I think people don't understand food restriction and water restriction for people with contamination OCD around bathroom and bodily movements and things like that is more common than you might expect. But it's very dangerous because you're not just causing yourself to be thirsty or hungry, but you're also changing the way that your body digests and processes what you put in it. So it causes all of these, abdominal, intestinal issues. And, if you look at all compulsive behavior, the more severe it gets, the more it causes the very thing you were afraid of it causing, right? So a person who spends an excessive amount of time adjusting their eating and drinking habits to avoid going to the bathroom will eventually have problems with incontinence. They'll have bathroom mistakes. They'll soil themselves in the middle of the classroom. That's going to get you a lot more judgment than all of your friends finding out you had to take a few days off. Your psychiatrist have a mental health condition. But people don't tend to think that way. They tend to think, I don't want people judging me or thinking I'm weird. So they do all the things that the OCD wants them to do, and then it gets out of control and end up judging them. Having these conversations, doing an Instagram live, doing your meet, getting local television, writing, all of these things to help the general public understand OCD better will help with
this.
But it solve it. It'll just help with it. I mean, we're tasked with making the world a better place. We can't task ourselves with making the world perfect. That sounds compulsive.
Yeah, absolutely. And the decision is for these parents, what they do with this knowledge, with this what we're talking about. If they want to help their child or engaging with compulsions with this kid.
Yeah, Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know enough about the situation. I wouldn't want to give them any concrete clinical advice, but obviously, I think you would agree that speaking to a professional would be helpful
Yeah,
for them.
yeah, absolutely.
There's plenty of reading material out there about OCD so they can understand their child better. And then there's probably some component of taking that risk of judgment, understanding that not taking that risk is probably more likely to bring judgment later than taking it now.
Yeah, but first, this mother told me she was angry. Angry, why are you doing this? Stop it. You are 15 years old. Look at your friends. They don't do this, and this is really hard to understand. But then she goes with her kids to therapist, but they are 1 year in therapy, and this is still hard to understand what to do, what not to do, and that's why we're talking about OCD out loud and in Poland, because many people in Poland, I think, don't speak English, and in Poland it's not really good sources about OCD. And when I speak with everyone, I tell them, do you speak English? Go to IOCDF or go to a really good therapist.
That's really interesting. It might be a coincidence, but for some reason, several of my books have been translated into Polish. And when I noticed
Yeah,
that, like, I wonder what's going on in Poland that creates this demand for
yeah.
material.
I started with your book. Yeah, when I got my diagnosis almost November 2023, I first book I bought was your book, and I started to reading about OCD, what it is, what I'm fighting with, and this is really helpful. But we have to be aware that this also can be compulsive.
Sure. Sure.
This knowledge looking for more and more and more, and yeah. But yeah, absolutely. I agree. Speaking about OCD, about treatment possibilities is really helpful, and also it's helpful speaking that we are not alone. We have amazing OCD community, amazing therapists, and when we speak about this, people who are suffering in silence can feel really less alone.
Yeah,
And can make this first step, for example, going to therapy.
correct. Right. Or reading a book or a blog or
Yeah,
watching an Instagram feed.
yeah, yes. Small steps, and that makes difference.
Yeah, I don't know what the services are. It sounds like maybe there aren't quite so many services in Poland as we have here in my country. We have different levels of care. They're not always easy to access financially, but thinking of this case that you were describing, where the OCD is so severe after a year of therapy, it's still quite severe, and this person is doing compulsively that are not good for their body. Um, here we would probably recommend a higher level of care, because sometimes what's needed is more than that 1 hour a week. Because you go and you have that treatment, but then you have to go back into the world with all of the stressors of school or work or family, and your OCD kind of keeps bothering you, and you do your best, but by the day right before your next appointment, you might have forgotten everything you learned a week ago,
Mm,
or done a lot of compulsions, and
yeah.
having a more intensive level of care where you're being seen every day, or in some cases for multiple hours a day, or in some cases even going to a residential program where you're living in an environment where the focus is on your mental health. That sort of extra boost of information and support is sometimes needed to break through those more severe and more complex cases. Because what we were saying before about how the OCD just kind of naturally gets worse if you don't intervene, Part of what makes it worse is you actually mentioned this. It can also bring on depression. It's like a tornado, and it's sort of pulling
Yeah,
in these cows and things as it goes by, and it can pull in traumatic experiences, health issues, depression, personality disorders and things like that along the way if it goes untreated. So
yeah,
sometimes in a more intense treatment to get somebody back into a healthy space.
yeah. And also when I started reading your book, then I joined a Facebook group about OCD in Poland. It's also important to make a safe space for people when we can talk about our problems, but we have to be aware of danger, because this mom yesterday asked me if her teenager should join to this group, and I told her I think absolutely not, because if people are not aware, they can seek reassurance on those group. They can reading about different OCD teams and starting to think, oh, I have the same. I have this team, and few more. And especially when you are a kid.
Yeah, it's especially when you're a child and you are you might not be protected in an online environment, and people could be giving you bad ideas, not just reassurance and supporting your compulsive behavior, but they could also be telling you things like, what medicines to take or foods to eat to cure your OCD or something like that. You have to be in a environment. It makes a big difference. I remember before I became a therapist, and for the first several years being a therapist, I was running an online support group for people with OCD, and this was back in the days of Yahoo groups, so it was all email based, and so it was all like, and it was very helpful. But as the moderator, it was helpful for me both as a person with lived experience and as a person learning to become a clinician. It was helpful for me to read all of these stories and really think through how to help them. Um, the part of part of it kind of interesting as a moderator was I had to constantly be on the lookout to keep people from, co-compulsing and
Yeah.
sometimes very well-meaning people would be giving, terrible advice. You should be taking pictures of your stove 10 times a day, then you'll really know that it's off.
Yeah.
And I'd have to find polite ways of saying, maybe we should look at this a little bit differently. I know you're trying to help, but so to your point, some of these environments can be more or less supportive.
And it's really good that we find some group with therapists, and this is really good, because therapists can control what are we talking about, if this is reassurance or not. But in the Facebook group where we have 5,000 people, it's really hard to control what people post, what they share, and we have to be aware of this danger.
Do you like in-person support groups, like goals groups, where a small group of people might get together with OCD and support each other in person?
Yeah, I joined a group, one group, and this is amazing, because this is really helpful to speak with people, especially with support from therapists. But this is, small group, 10 people, but social media are also amazing, and I'm really happy that I joined this community and speak with you, John, and with other therapists, because people are so open, and when I speak with many people and just ask, maybe we can do something great, maybe we can make a life about OCD, and they tell me, yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Without knowing me, and this is amazing. but we also have to think about this, that this is social media, and this can be dangerous because we don't know people who are behind the phone.
Yeah. We could talk for another hour about all of the problems with social media because there's a lot of them. But the one good thing with social media is I think it does have a very supportive OCD community. Facebook, and sure that you'll find these spaces where people are not that are in the healthiest of ways, but for the most part, I meet a lot of people like yourself that you have just the right amount of curiosity and ingenuity to ask, like, what do you think of this meme, or what do you think about maybe we do an interview, or what do you think about maybe we thing together, and people with OCD are can really be beautiful thinkers. They can be very open and very creative and very there's a lot going on there besides their rituals. I mean, that's really the horror and the drama of OCD is that it tries to take you and make you about that one thing, that one obsession, and says, this is what you're about. This is what your life is about. And when you work on it and you overcome and get some mastery over your OCD, you realize that that's one thing, but you are many things, right? And watching people grow into that is just such an amazing thing. And I don't know, there's something I wish I could be more articulate. There's something about people with OCD that when they find the opportunity to be compassionate towards others, they leap at it. They jump at it. And sometimes that can look like moral scrupulosity, but I think when it's contained, it actually allows for things like this to happen. It allows people like yourself with lived experience to make a splash in stigma, like help people. Hey, this is real. It's real. It's treatable, and you're not alone. What a huge difference.
Yeah, and this is so amazing that if we use this social media, Instagram, Facebook wisely, we can help the people, even we don't realize that we do this. And I know when I use my page and my memes, I have to be also aware of this, that this what I post that has a huge impact for people, and I think I have to think about this what I share with people, because memes are funny, are good for better understanding OCD for other people, but also can make people think that OCD is just a joke or something.
Right. You have to, we call that threading the needle, right? You have to find that small.
Yeah, exactly.
You're using humor to highlight something and to acknowledge the absurdity of how OCD can be, but without it being demeaning or invalidating, or without diminishing the pain that it causes. I've also struggled with that. I put a lot of thought into, is this funny or is this just mean-spirited? I have to think about it.
Yeah, that's why I always think to put for my memes something special, something intelligent, something with value for others, not just a meme, because just a meme can be funny, but it has no values.
Right.
And this is important, because when people see one meme and other meme, it's a really easy to see the difference. What is a good meme and what is something bad, and can make the more misunderstanding what really OCD is.
And humor plays an important role in treatment as well, and it's the same sort of process. When you have OCD, you're going to be very aware of what not to say sometimes. right? What would be the worst thing I could say right now, right? It could be right. I could say something. I could ruin my career in this moment if I really wanted to, right? Right. And I said, I think, and in fact, like the OCD is so absurd. If you can accurately match that absurdity and show that there is actually a funny side to the uh, and do it, the patient can also see that in themselves. It can be extremely liberating, extremely validating. Like, oh, this makes so much sense, right? But you have to be thoughtful. I get it wrong sometimes, I have to admit, but I try my best. Um, because I think it is important to have a sense of humor about your OCD. If you can't find the humor in the absurd, then you're going to think that the absurd is reality, and that's what's causing so much of your suffering.
Yeah, I think the humor can take a power from our OCD and make this less hard for us.
Yeah.
So, John, I think if we have a few minutes, we can ask people if they have any questions for us. And I'm really grateful for this possibility to speak with you. I hope we can meet together in Chicago this year. I'm really, yeah, that will be great. And this important thing I want to tell anyone is that you are not alone, and if you need, ask for help. OCD is treatable, and this community is amazing. We're definitely not alone.
Well, it's been a privilege to be able to speak with you. This has been a lot of fun, and yeah, I'll hang out to take questions if there's some there. Yeah, you're not alone. Important message.
So my English is not perfect, but I do my best.
I don't know if you understood everything I was saying. I know I can speak quickly sometimes, but
but I understand. I understand. You speak really clear, and yeah, and your English is really good too.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. Okay. If we have no questions, so I can answer later. If you have guys a question for us, just write me DMs and yeah. So
you see I saw some comments earlier in our discussion.
Yeah. Okay. One second. Yeah. On Reddit, hundreds of people seeking reassurance. That's right. Mm.
Yeah, I don't use Reddit myself. I've had a lot of patients tell me that they spend a lot of time doing compulsions on Reddit. So I've just decided not to go there because it doesn't sound like I'm gonna get what I need.
Yeah. Here we have question. What about existential OCD? Thoughts on reality and if anything is real?
Yeah, I think that's a great example of the invisible side of OCD. We were talking before about how the OCD can kind of transform if you're doing a lot of rituals into anger and depression, and one of these things it can transform into is existential dread. Like, what does any of this even mean? What are we all about? I've definitely worked with a lot of people who have these obsessive concerns. Right? There's a question: is anything real? What happens after we die? It's an interesting question, and you can take an interest in it. But that's not OCD, right? OCD is not just something you're sort of kind of into and want to learn about. OCD is something where you think you're not going to be able to tolerate failure to get 100% of the information. And so what you want to do there is really learn how to prove to yourself, hey, I can live without having the answer to this question. Here's me living for an hour without ritualizing. Here's me living for 2 hours without researching or analyzing. And all it means is you're a very big thinker and you're interested in essential concepts. That's cool. But if it feels like a burden, if you feel like you wish you hadn't thought of it in the first place, then you could treat it like any other kind of OCD, right? That idea that there's more you need to know, that's the contaminant you're trying to wash away. right? What can you do to not wash that away and to actually embrace, there are things about reality that are. I did a podcast episode with Stuart Ralph on the OCD stories about existential OCD. If folks are interested in more information, I think there's on mindfulness work.
Yeah. Okay, next question we have, how do you deal with mental compulsions? So in my case, really help to be self-aware at this point when triggers hit me. And I see when I start ruminating, and then the really helpful question is if I really need to know right now about this, if it is really necessary or not, and the answer is always no. I don't have to know it right now and in 1 hour or in 8 hours, because this answer doesn't change anything.
I like that. Yeah, I think the first step is definitely to be able to recognize that you are engaging in a ritual, right? There's something you could just think about something, that's one thing, but doing a mental ritual feels very much like you're doing a jigsaw puzzle and there's one piece left and you can't find it. It's somewhere on the floor, right? And so you're looking in your head for that one last piece that puzzle.
Yep.
There's a quality to that that's different than just thinking about something. So if you can catch that quality, then you say, oh, that must be ritual. It can be helpful to come up with a name for your ritual. I mean, rumination is a perfectly adequate name, or mental review, or mental checking. But I always encourage my patients to come up with their own names for it, because then you say, oh, I'm doing that thing, and you have a name for it, and it kind of puts you back in the observer seat and makes it a little bit easier to let go of.
Yeah. So this is cool when we start to see when we starting engage with this. This is really a huge step because earlier when I didn't notice that I'm starting ruminating, I was absolutely blind. I was not aware what I'm doing, and I didn't know that this make my situation worse, and this finding solution doesn't help me.
Right.
Okay. So next, yeah.
Bring on the next question. You mentioned saying to yourself, "I don't need to know." Right. I think having a coping statement is helpful. So one that's helpful. I don't need to do this right now. Right? First step, you recognize doing it. And then the next thing is you tell yourself, I don't need to do this thing right now. You don't have to get so complicated with it. Just recognize I'm doing something. I don't need to do it. Right? Turn your attention away.
Or what will I do if I don't if I will not ruminating? What can I do for myself, for my family right now at this point?
Yeah. What would opting for the greater good? What would be a better use of my attention right now than what my OCD?
Because I remember one situation when my 6 years old Timek asked me, Dad, can you play with me and do something with me? And I told him 1 minute, because I have to find solution in my head right now. And this 1 minute changed to 1 hour. And my boy was still waiting for me, for my love, for my time with him.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very common experience for parents with OCD, and then you feel badly, right? You feel shame after that because your OCD, pulled you away from the things that you valued. You wanted to be able to spend that time with your child, but you felt like
you think you're horrible, you're terrible parent.
Yeah, but you're not. You're just a stressed parent with doing the best you can, and remembering that, like, hey, what is the thing that I value? What's the best use of my attention right now? And so that can feel like pulling away, like tearing, like something like it's glued together. And pull yourself away from your OCD, and it's going to try to pull you back, and you have to kind of pull yourself away and really get into, what does your son want to do? Like, roll a ball back and forth or play a board game. You